CS 1030 students. Welcome to a short lecture. I hope it's a short lecture on problem solving and 13 statements you can tell yourself while you're solving problems. As an intro to this, let me just tell you that 90% of computer science is solving problems. And probably half of those problems are solving problems you did not create, which is always an interesting thing. Maybe it sounds fun. Maybe some of the coding we're doing is fun to kind of see how things are fit together. But most of computer science is sitting in front of a screen trying to figure out where did things go wrong and trying to keep from yanking your hair out or screaming at your family members or your coworkers or worse, your boss while you're trying to figure out what the heck just went wrong. So with that said, as a short introductory statement, there are 3 basic steps to making a computer program. So this is computer programming in 3 easy steps. No, it's not easy, but these are the 3 steps. First, you design the program. So you actually sit down. You don't really do this. You don't really do this at a computer, or you don't really do it in a computer program environment. You do this outside. You do this in your brain. You do this while you're in the shower or exercising. Is you design the program. You actually write it out. We're going to talk more about this in future installments, but pseudocode is a wonderful design tool. That's where you write out the code without actually coding it. You just write it out shorthand on a pad of paper and just sort of plan it out in your head. And then you actually program it. You actually code it. And then you test what you just coded. Those are the 3 easy steps. And then usually when you test it, you find, oh, that didn't work. I made a mistake. Sometimes it was a little mistake. Sometimes it's a really big mistake. So then after number 3, you go back to number 1, or you go back to number 2, and all the steps jumble together in your head. And pretty soon you're not designing, programming, testing. You're programming and then designing and then testing and then going back to programming and then testing and then going back to designing. And it all falls apart pretty quick. And so it's a very frustrating process. So there are 13 steps that the textbooks for this class gave us, 13 things we can say to ourselves to keep ourselves from going crazy when we're trying to code something and it's just not working. 13 statements we can say to help keep ourselves calm. Before I get into them, let me just say I've talked to several people actually in the field of computer science. I've talked to several employers in this field. It is becoming the biggest field in the United States and definitely the world. And all of them, every single one of them, and I have read article after article after article, and it's been in curriculum after curriculum after curriculum for computer science teachers. They say the most important thing for anybody who's going into any of the computer science fields is that they know how to solve problems. They said we can teach them coding. We can teach them databases, and we can teach them hardware. We can teach them what they need to know, but if they do not have a good attitude and if they are not good at solving problems without us having to tell them to solve that problem, without sending us 30 emails about the problem, then we will pay them their weight in gold. We will give them so much money. Problem solving is the most important skill that anybody can have in the computer world. So with that said, there are some things that you can tell yourself to help yourself solve problems. And I'm just going to go through them very quickly. The first and probably the most important one is I will own the problem. Whether or not I caused the problem, I will own it. My professor, when I was taking this class at Weber State, said one of the major annoyances when he was a boss in computer science is when somebody would come into his office, one of his employers, and he would say, hey, have you solved this problem yet? And he would say, well, you know, I'm not the one who really caused it, and it wasn't really my fault. And he would get mad, and he'd look at them, and he'd say, I didn't ask you whose fault it was. I asked you, did you solve the problem? So the number one thing is you got to say, I will own the problem, even if I didn't cause it. I'm not going to play the scapegoat game. I'm not going to play the blame game. I'm not going to play the excuse game. I'm going to look at this and say, there's a problem, and I'm going to own it. I'm going to make this mine, and I'm going to fix it. So I will own the problem. Second one, I will remain calm. This one's harder than the other ones, and I have some jokes at the end of this lecture about this one in particular, but I'll wait for that. But I will remain calm. Whatever it does that helps you calm down. take deep breaths, go for a walk, exercise, whatever it is that helps you remain calm. You need to figure out a technique where you can remain calm and keep the problem from frustrating you. When you get frustrated, it starts to shut down the higher tiers of your brain. And so that obviously gets in the way of problem solving. So you need to remain calm. You need to figure out a way that you cannot be driven crazy by whatever this problem is. So I will remain calm. I will take deep breaths. I'll remind myself that there is a solution, and I will assess that. I will use the scientific method. This one goes without saying. When you go to solve problems, come up with a hypothesis, test it, write down the results and some notes on that. The record results is even one of the other I statements, but use the scientific method. It's a good method. There's a reason all the scientists use it. It's really good for problem solving. So just use the scientific method, come up with a hypothesis, say, I wonder if it's not working because of this line, or I wonder if it's not working because of this variable over here, or this conditional statement, and then test that out in various ways and record the results. Next, I will read the manual. A quick Google search, guys, will solve a lot of the problems that you run into, not only in computer programming, but in your daily lives. Have you done a Google search? A quick Google search will help you out considerably. Have you read the online forums? Online forums are obnoxious. I hate digging through them, but man, they are full of information if you just can stick with them and keep reading them. A few months ago, my wife got me a drone for my birthday. And the drone had the capability to connect to a phone, and you could use your phone as a remote. However, my drone would connect to my phone, but the camera wouldn't work. The camera of the drone wouldn't connect to the screen of my phone. So I Googled it. I read tons and tons of web pages, got nowhere, gave up. A few months later, came back and Googled it again. And at the very bottom, I want to say it was like the 30th comment on a thread about this particular type of drone, somebody, like 30 comments down, somebody said it didn't work because my phone was too old. And I smacked myself in the face and said, oh, my phone's like 5 years old. I had a really dumpy phone at that point. And sure enough, I'd gotten a new phone since then, and the new phone connected to it fine. So online forums are super helpful if you're willing to read them. YouTube videos are great. I just installed a light hitch with lights in my car. So I just wired my hitch so I could plug lights into it. And I found a great 8-minute long YouTube video. It just walked me through it step by step, and it was perfect. Everything went according to plan. Actual manuals and instructions actually help as well. So actually read the manuals. Read the things that are out there that can help you solve your problem. Google it. Read some online forums. Find some instruction manuals. Find some YouTube videos. I will make it fail. If at first you don't succeed, make it fail. If at first you can't make it work, make it fail. Just seconds ago, I was working on one of the 8th grade coding tutorial videos, and I made a typo in one of the lines, and I just plain couldn't find it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to keep deleting lines of code until I find it, until the code works. And sure enough, I was able to find it. You just keep deleting stuff. So if you can't make it work, make it fail. See if you can redesign your failures. If you're coding, redesign your failure. Go through it again. Do it again step by step and make it fail and see if you can't figure out where you made it fail. That one will make more sense as we get into coding. Next one is look before you assume. Oh man, guys, I can't emphasize this one enough. Look before you assume. If you assume, oh, of course I coded that right. Look at it. Well, of course I spelled that word right. Look at it. Of course I put a parenthesis there. Look at it. Of course that program's working fine. Look at it. Actually look. Don't just assume something's working fine. Don't just assume it's good. Actually go look and make sure it's good. As I've been making these tutorial videos, I'm assuming they're going off without a hitch, but I've still been double clicking and watching the videos I'm making. It does double the amount of time it takes me to make them, but I'm making sure that they are working as they're supposed to be working. So look before you assume. Don't just assume something's good. Actually look at it. Divide and conquer. So if you have a big problem, divide it up into little pieces. Say, okay, I'm going to do this first. By the way, this one will help you with number 2, remain calm. It's much easier to do little things and let them add up to a big thing than try to do the big thing all at once, right? So divide up the problem, divide up the code, and conquer it that way. Say, okay, I'm going to work on this first, and I'm just going to focus on this, and then once I'm done there, I'll move on to this. You'll feel much more accomplished. You'll feel much more productive. Your spirits will stay higher. Your emotional health will be better. So divide it up and conquer. Hopefully that one goes without saying. Isolate changes. That's a little bit of what I was doing earlier with the 8th grade program I was talking about. That's where you delete certain lines of code, or you pull them out to another section and then see if that line works, see if that patch of code works. Usually this means dividing your code up by the little squiggly brackets, because that's what in Java marks off a section of code. So isolate your changes. If you're having trouble figuring out where an error is, just cut stuff away, put it in another file temporarily, and then bring it back once you've solved the problem. Write down what you do. Keep a log. Write down what you do. We were trying to wire a 3-way switch in my church the last summer, and we couldn't figure out. We had 6 wires. We had to find the right combination of 6 wires and 3 lights. So we had 6 wires and 3 lights, and we had to find out which combination of wires would give us the 3-way switch. So we put duct tape on each wire and labeled one wire A, one wire B, C, D, E, F. And then we just said, okay, did A go with light 1? And then we just wrote it down, and we pretty soon found the combination. So write down what you do. Keep an error log. Write down your hypotheses and your tests. That's part of the scientific method, so you guys should know that. And then check the fuel level. The fuel level is a metaphor. It's a code for check the little things. In computer programming, guys, often it's the little things. You forgot a parenthesis. You forgot a quotation mark. You forgot a semicolon. You forgot one of those squiggly brackets. You misspelled a variable. It's oftentimes those really little things. So check the obvious things first. Obvious things are things like, is it on? Is it plugged in? Is the router working? Does this hyperlink actually refer to, that I'm hyperlinking people to, does it refer to an actual website? Check the little things. Always check the little things. The fuel level, the idea is someone drove their car into a car shop one day and said, I can't get my car to start. I started it, and I just crank on the starter, and it just turns the engine over, and nothing happens. And the mechanic looks under the engine and says, everything looks good here, and he climbs in the car, and he turns the key, and he sees that the fuel gauge is all the way on the E for empty, and at that point you have egg on your face. So make sure it's on, make sure it's plugged in, make sure the router is working, make sure the hyperlink's referring to an actual website. Check the little things. Don't forget to check the little things first. And then get another perspective. If none of those things help, get somebody else to look at it. I was working on my video game last summer, and I was really having a problem getting something to work. And my wife, who knows nothing about video games and nothing about computer program, walked into the room. And I said, Allie, I just can't quite figure this out. I've done everything. I did this, and I did this, and I did this, and I did... Oh, I didn't do that. Oh, thanks, hon. You just solved my problem. And my wife is just sitting there staring at me. She hadn't even said a word. Sometimes just talking through the problem with another person really helps solve the problem. Get someone else to look at it. Say, hey, can you figure this thing out for me? Pull someone else in. They have different eyes than you. They have a different frame, mind frame than you do, so they can help you with that. And then after the problem is solved, the last 3 I statements are really for after the problem is solved. So those first ones will help you. But after the problem is solved, don't stop there. This is where a lot of people make a mistake. After you've solved your problem, do 3 more things. The first is check to see that the problem is actually fixed. Sometimes you can fix a symptom without fixing the underlying problem. Sometimes your problem is bigger than a misspelled variable, but then you actually see the misspelled variable and you think, oh, that's why it's not working. You spell the variable the right way, and you think that fixed it, and it did fix one problem, but it didn't fix the underlying problem. So actually check to make sure the problem is fixed, and then ask 3 questions. Is this happening anywhere else? Did I type that variable name that way anywhere else in the program? If I did, I better go fix it. Is there another bug hiding under this bug? Is there another thing hiding under this thing that was causing this? Is this a symptom or the actual problem? What should I do? And what should I do to keep myself from doing this in the future? What should I do to keep myself from doing this in the future? So those are the I statements that help you guys figure out how to solve problems. If you memorize them and say them to yourself often, they'll help you be a really good employee, a really good teammate, and really good at solving problems. You'll be the hero of the office who gets all kinds of wild promotions with more bonuses and money than you'll know how to spend. If you don't memorize those, if you don't put those into practice, you'll be the guy that gets fired from all the jobs you ever had because nobody likes that person. So those are those. Now, just for fun, here are my I statements. When I come against a problem that I can't solve, and I get really frustrated by it, and I'm starting to lose my cool, here are my I statements. First, I'll keep something expendable nearby. I don't know if you guys know what expendable means, but breakable is another word for it. I'll keep something nearby that I can ruin. So oftentimes we talk about a pillow. Keep a pillow nearby that you can smack your keyboard with, right? Don't smack your keyboard against your desk. You'll break your keyboard and have to buy a new one. But keep something nearby that when you're starting to lose your cool, you can break that thing and nobody's going to care. So a doll works, a stuffed animal works, so a pillow works. So keep something expendable nearby. A balloon that you can pop, sometimes just popping a balloon gets all the rage out and you can remain calm and go back to problem solving. Yell into the void. Don't yell at your coworkers. Don't yell at your family. Don't yell at your wife or husband. Don't yell at your boss. Just yell into the void. Here a pillow is really good too. Just hold the pillow in front of your face and scream into it. It should sound something like this. Just do that. Yeah, do that. That'll help you remain calm. And last, but most importantly, is go for a run, or go for a walk, or go play a video game, or go hiking in the mountains, or go out to coffee with a friend. This is actually science proves this one, that sometimes when your conscience, the frontal lobe of your brain, has worked on something so long for so hard, if you give your frontal lobe something else to do, it will actually pass the problem solving back to your interior brain, and your subconscious will work on continuing to solve the problem while you're out running, while you're at coffee with a friend, while you're playing a video game. And so sometimes it's a really good idea to take a break. Sometimes you've worked on it as long as you're going to work on it. When you take a break, that's when your subconscious, the 90% of your brain that isn't your conscious part, will actually get to work solving the problem. It really is, it's science, but it feels like magic, and it's worked so many times in my life. So have a hobby, have something you can do after you've worked on something forever that you can get your brain to turn off. So those are a little bit about problem solving, and hopefully you got something out of that. It's more of a lighthearted lecture for you. Hang